All right, Gridiron 360. We are continuing our conversation on NFL free agency, and we are continuing down the path of the AFC West. Just wrapped up the Los Angeles Chargers. We're moving on to the Raiders, who are also moving on from Oakland to Vegas. The Las Vegas Raiders, obviously they've made some moves here. We talked about in our updates in free agency. They currently sit at the number 12 pick in this year's 2020 NFL draft. Cap space, they're number 13 currently as of today, which is Thursday the 19th of March. Number 13 out of 32 teams with $27 million. And needs we have cornerback, safety, defensive backfield, wide receiver.
I also would put on there potentially they could be looking at a left tackle.
Okay, left tackle as well. Now,
but I believe that might be something, if they do it, is going to be in the draft.
Yep. Now, a couple things. We talked about them bringing in Corey Littleton, inside linebacker, 26 from the Rams. Brought in outside linebacker Carl Nassib, 27 years old, from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Nick Kwiatkowski, linebacker from the Bears, 27 years old. Jeff Heath, 29 years old, strong safety from Dallas. Jason Witten, 38, tight end from Dallas. And we talked about him bringing Eli Apple, 25-year-old corner. Marcus Mariota, quarterback, 26. I don't know if we talked Malik Collins. I think we did. Tackle.
He came out of Denver, didn't he?
Yep. And then Carl Joseph, who we know now is moving on from their secondary.
Which makes sense, because if there's one thing when I look at this team, I think they have built some depth, particularly on their defense. I mean, you can give me the starters, but I mean, just even looking at DN, this is a team that obviously drafted Cleveland Farrell as number 4 last year overall pick, and so he's going to man that one side. They've signed a D tackle we just mentioned, Malik Collins. They already had Jonathan Hankins, who they've got at D tackle. So their line, maybe they make some filler pieces in line. They got P.J. Hall, a backup D tackle. But what I find interesting is you just mentioned the linebacking core, which basically just got completely revamped. Again, got rid of Whitehead and moved on with those 3 guys. Now you look at a secondary. I mean, you got a guy they just signed, Eli Apple, probably. I would imagine their number 2 corner. They got Mullen from Clemson, who they took, I think, was the 2nd round last year.
They took him
or 2 years ago.
End of the first. No, it was last year. They took him end of the first.
Oh, did they have a second pick in the end of the first?
Oh no.
They might have. That might have been the Bears draft pick that they took.
Did they take both Clemson guys in the first? I can't remember. I think so. I think they did.
No, they took Abram in this.
Oh,
their
that's
other
right. That's
pick,
right.
and
That's
then
right.
They took
Jonathan Abram, and then they took Mullen, and then they took my boy Hunter Renfrow from Clemson a little later. Okay.
Yep. So you're talking about their back end already. You got an Eli Apple. You got Mullen. You've got their first-round draft pick in Abram, who's coming back off of injury. They just signed Heath in the secondary. They also had previously signed LaMarcus Joyner. So you're creating some depth there on defense. We talked about they had an emergence of a tight end and then still went out and got Jason Witten as a secondary tight end. They've got on the offensive line, again, I think they could look, because 12 would be probably a good position with the tackles that are out there to go tackle.
Good position for a good lineman.
But other than that, I mean, Trenton Brown is solidified at the right guard.
Well, let me ask you, Whitehead, what happened with him?
They cut him.
They cut Tahir Whitehead.
I have not seen him get picked up.
All right,
yet.
Other free agents I want to run down. So we mentioned Whitehead, outside linebacker, 30 years old. Cornerback, Daryl Worley, 25. These are all free agents that we don't know anything about for the Raiders. Vontez Burfict, Mr. Trouble himself, 29, outside linebacker. Backup quarterback Mike Glennon, 30. Benson Mayowa, DN, 29 years old. Dwayne Harris, 32-year-old wideout. Josh Morrow, 29-year-old D tackle. Kyle Wilbur, outside linebacker, 31. Isaiah Crowell, running back. Curtis Riley, free safety. Jordan DeVay, guard. Will Compton, 30-year-old inside linebacker. Rod Smith at running back. Keelan Doss was one of the other backup tight ends.
Yep.
He's Actually, they have him listed as a wide receiver. I think he was playing some tight end, and they moved him
He was
to
a
wide
big
receiver.
undrafted guy, a big favorite if you watch the Hard Knocks show.
Yep, 24 years old though. Eric Tomlinson, tight end. Let's see, Olsen Piero, DeAndre Washington, a guy that's been a backup running for them and played a role. A couple of Daniel Carlson, kicker. I got another linebacker, guard, safety, corner. Deion Jordan, DN, 30 years old, and the infamous 37-year-old guard Richie Incognito is I got him here that he's signed up. Is he? Well, he probably will. I could see him staying put.
Yeah, here is, unless they cut him because he does have a low dead money number, but.
Talk to us, Dave. What do the Raiders do in what they're calling the Death Star? Have you seen the new stadium? It's rad, dude. It's like all black, shiny. I mean, it's kind of rad, dude. It looks like it's something out of Star Wars.
Maybe
like
it's
the
one
Empire.
Maybe it's one
I'm
we
going
go check
to the
out.
game.
Yeah, we check out.
I can't wait till the Giants play there, man. I'm definitely going to the game. I'm not a Vegas guy. I'm not a big gambler. I don't like to be in Vegas a long time, but a couple days, a long weekend's good.
I'll go anywhere to watch pro football.
Now that they've got this, it gives it even more reason. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think, again, I want to talk about, some of the young guys that they've got. Again,
and by the way, listeners, I'll go ahead and find the little, I think it was like a fly around of the new stadium and post it to our Facebook site so you can see it's pretty
I'm
rad.
sure it's something pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I will say this. This is some areas where I really like this team. For as much as I think Cleveland will be a good player for them. One of the things I saw last year, and he got injured. He got injured in the camp or preseason, actually, outside of camp. Was their DN Max Crosby. Max Crosby could be one of those hidden gems. He was, I think, a fourth rounder. Where did he come from? Was he a K-State guy or something? I forget where he came out of.
Say like a Central Michigan.
Oh, was he? Yeah, okay.
I'll find it.
But that kid played some good games. Ended up playing the season, the first part of the season with a club on his hand, but still came on. So again, I think they've got some young guys. Again, you got Abrams, who sat out most of the year, got injured. So they're going to get some of those pieces back. I certainly think they need some big play at wide receiver. Could if they feel comfortable with Colton.
Eastern Michigan.
All right.
It was close.
All right. Yep. There you
Wrong
were.
direction.
You were.
Right state.
But he could, they could also go wide receiver. A CeeDee Lamb, Jerry Jeudy could be in this position, especially if some of that chaos happens at the beginning of the draft. I think they are not as far away. I'm always careful with Gruden. Jeff Garcia said this many, many years ago when he was in Tampa. He said something about Gruden. He said he only likes to date quarterbacks. He doesn't like to marry them. So, and you saw it. He brought in some of that old school running game, and Josh Jacobs had a hell of a year, and I think he proved every bit of what, the hope was that he would be.
Yeah, I mean, I think wideout makes sense for them. They brought in Zay Jones from Buffalo during the season. He didn't do much in Buffalo, and I didn't really see him do much in Oakland, now Las Vegas. They picked up Hunter Renfrow as a slot, did great things.
They love him. Gruden loves that dude.
Look, again, I'm Clemson homer, but I could tell you right now, I'd take him in New York. Yep. Any day of the week. That guy is solid. He may look like the kid that bags your groceries at Publix, but he is.
He would look like the old man.
Probably
that
bags your groceries. I literally could say, even as in his second year, probably one of the best route runners you'll ever see. Sure hands,
hot wife,
knows his job, knows how to find space and sit and be open. At the right time.
Here's where they need that.
Well, I wasn't done. Because you also have in front of him, they brought in Tyrell Williams.
Yep.
I think he had kind of a resurgence to his career from where he left with the Chargers. But still, Williams has never been a superstar, and he's aging. And so that's going back to needing wideout, maybe.
I think they need that number one guy. Those guys are all solid. And listen, Renfrow.
They need to find like
Renfrow's your third guy. But here's the thing about it is, and what really is telling about it, Darren Waller is one of those special athletic tight ends, and you saw he was ripping it up for the first half of the year. But once he was kind of shown as really the only somewhat field stretching, tough catch player, his stats seriously
Defense
went
has
down.
figured it out.
They went after him hardcore, and nobody really stepped in the void. I think this is a team that could use that.
Well, keep in mind on their
so-
depth chart, they only have 2 wide receiver positions, whereas you may see another team that has slotted for 3 or maybe even 4.
Yep.
But they only have 2 wide receiver positions, and then their tight end because he's part of the mix. And with a good running back like Josh Jacobs and a good tight end like him, you can have those 2 receivers. I just think
And they
you
don't
need,
even-
like you said, like a number 1, like a really big superstar that
And you could
could
see
be with him for a while.
And you could see Waller explode for the long term in that sense. I think the reality is, though, with Waller, he's so athletic that I think you're going to see, even on a 4-wide set and a 5-wide set, you're going to see that guy in there because he has shown himself very quickly to be a good pass catcher.
Yep.
If you don't know anything about his story, definitely look it up and check it out. But he's a guy that had a drug problem with Baltimore,
Opioids.
got straight and has really, he's just got that personality that you kind of want to have around you.
Gruden brought him in to Oakland, and there was a lot of not a lot, but they spent a little time in the Hard Knocks show talking about him and him telling his story, and he felt like he was getting a second chance and needed to make it right. He was trying to get himself better. He had been clean and on the up and up, and good for Gruden for giving him that chance, man. I mean, like he really showed out.
I will say this, and Kansas City, and we'll get into them in a minute. But
I'd trade Evan Ingram to him to pick up Darren Waller right now.
I don't think they would trade for Evan Ingram.
Damn.
But this is something I would say about this team, and in particular this division. If the Chargers are able to do something at quarterback that makes them, I think with Tyrod Taylor, I think they're probably able to be anywhere from 7-9, probably to 9-7. Would be roughly where I'd slot them right now. And then you've got the Raiders. Understand something. Going into, I want to say it was after 4 weeks or 4 weeks left in the season, maybe 3 weeks even. The Raiders were right there with Kansas City for that division.
They had a shot not just at making the playoffs, but at the division.
Taking the division, yeah.
And it's, I feel like they were just, they got to work at the beginning of the season, kept their nose down, were working. And then when we got to that point in the just as the midway point passed, it's almost like they started reading their own press clippings and saw that, we have a shot at this, not just at division, but the playoffs, and got a little too high on their horse or something because then they just fell apart.
Well, and I think
they fell apart.
And the other part
took
with the
their
wide
eyes off the
receiver,
prize.
well, I also think at the wide receiver position is, if I was to kind of give an idea of who I think Derek Carr is, I think Derek Carr is a distributor. And what happened was when Waller started getting covered and he started losing his
Hunter
options,
was hurt for a few games.
Yeah, he
with
just
a bad rib, punctured lung or something.
He's not going to make those amazing window throws, the Aaron Rodgers type throws. Like he needs guys that can find, and he can deliver in rhythm and he can deliver on time, but he's not going to make that spectacular play. And when he's forced to, I mean, you notice he's kind of been that, 60% passing, 225 to 250 yards a game, maybe a couple of touchdowns. That's who he's been. Now, with a receiving core that can create space and do that, and if they get somebody, I mean, a Jerry Jeudy or a CeeDee Lamb as a potential, that takes less pressure on him, and he's not I don't classify him as like an oh my god quarterback, like where he just does dumb crap. He's just not electrifying. But again, if you put these kind of weapons around him and then throw a back,
job done.
Yeah, you can throw a back in the backfield like that. I think he's very capable.
Yep.
And so I look at it and go, and understand, we're going to get into Kansas City. They don't have a lot of flexibility. They haven't made a lot of moves. I mean, and I would say right now that the Raiders and Chargers have gotten better. Now, the Raiders, I think, are a hell of a lot closer to Kansas City coming into this offseason than the Chargers. But again, the Chargers have made some big moves. Their defense is going to get better. Remember, they're without one of their best defensive players in Derwin James. That's going to change. They've signed some guys. So my point is, I think this division is a lot more open.
They were without him last year.
This is probably one of the – I'm going to say this. It might sound kind of weird, but I got to tell you, I think Kansas City is one of the weakest Super Bowl champions that I've seen in a long time.
We'll talk more about that later.
So, again, the point being, I think the Raiders are making those moves, and I think this is – I mean, I think if one of those two receivers is open, I'd go that route before I go offensive tackle because I think they can survive. And I think with that, this team could be scary. Scary.
Well, I mean, I think that they definitely progressed this year, the second year under Gruden from the first year. And for me, that's the bottom line. Like, I think that arrow is maybe not pointing straight up, maybe not highly on the 45 degrees, but it's moving up. I don't think they're going to get worse this year. I think they're going to get better. So if that tells you anything, and you look at the rest of the field in their division in particular, there's a good chance that, they could walk into their new digs in Vegas and really, really make some noise.
Yeah, and I mean, I look at it like we had in there with them too as well, cornerback and safety, and neither one of their cornerback or safety deals I felt were out of control. Mm-hmm. Even Chris Harris, I don't feel like they got totally fleeced on that deal and didn't, they paid, but they didn't go nuts. And I mean, the Heath deal was a good deal, and remember they got LaMarcus Joyner and they got their rookie in Jonathan Abrams. So this is
they didn't bring in Harris. That was the Chargers.
Jeff Heath.
You said
did I say Harris?
Yeah,
I meant, sorry, Jeff Heath.
Heath. Chris Harris. That's what confused
me.
No,
no, they did bring in Chris Harris, didn't they, at the corner? That's who they got today.
No, that was the Chargers.
Oh, all right. Well, maybe they need to go cornerback. I got totally confused. You let me say it earlier. I said it earlier.
No, you were right earlier because you were talking about Heath and you went into it.
I know, but I said all right. Anyway.
But anyway, so Chris Harris went from Denver to the Chargers, not the Raiders. But to your point, I think they could use a little bit at corner. They brought in Eli Apple, is who they bought in.
That's what I was thinking of.
They bought in Eli Apple. Again, they have Travion Mullen, Marcus Joyner, Abrams coming back. Might be able to grab a corner. Now, this draft is not. We have talked about it before in the draft. There's not a ton of secondary.
It's and everybody else.
Yeah, it's Okudah and everybody else. So at this point, you just grab one. They may be the next best or next one of the next best guys.
One of the next best guys is C.J. Henderson, at least at this point, showing. And what's going to be very interesting this year, and not that we
maybe they bring
Corona is going to be that they're not getting these pro days are getting canceled. So I'll be curious to see how that.
Well, maybe they bring in maybe they put our other corner on the other side of Mullen, A.J. Terrell from Clemson. He blew up the combine.
So we're going to go from Clemson Southwest to now Clemson West.
God, I can't be a Raider fan though, dude. I just can't. I just can't because it's muddled in mediocrity or worse more times than not. But yeah, I mean, essentially, if they were to do that, I mean, you're talking about a tandem that played 3 years together at Clemson, did pretty damn well, man.
Potential. So this team's got some flexibility.
And you could get Terrell in probably the late second or third, I think at highest. So there's opportunity there. But all right, well, that'll wrap up the Las Vegas Raiders, and we will move on next to the Denver Broncos.